Today, we'll be having a look at the Template FPL draft, the most popular draft that is being picked to go into the start of the season, what players I like, what players are in it, what it means going forward, and actually a few ways that you can get ahead of it and beat the template. What is up everyone, FPL Harry here, and today we are having a look at the FPL Template, the most popular squad that people are picking going into the start of the season. Then I'll be having a look at a few ways to beat it, a few changes I would make. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes on the video is always the aim, and subscribe if you are new around here. To look at the players that could actually beat the template, I use Fantasy Football Scout. Fantasy Football Scout are sponsoring my channel this season. They are the best one-stop shop for all things Fantasy Premier League. Whether you like videos, whether you like articles, whether you like podcasts, whether you like data, whether you need pre-season analysis, everything is there for you. There is a link in the description which get you 30% off, but it does expire at the game week 1 deadline. So go and check it out if you are interested for this season. But the template is already up on your screen now. It is a 3-5-2 draft with 4 strong defenders and no Liverpool in it. So let's go through it very quickly. It does also leave 0.5 million in the bank. If you are considering what to do with your team going into game week 1 and you're not that happy with it, you don't have a lot of time to actually think about it, this team is really nice. You should consider going with something very similar to this if you don't have that time. The template is a template for a reason. I know it gets a lot of backlash. I know a lot of people are like, picking the template team is boring, but a lot of these players are highly owned for a reason because they are underpriced and they are good assets going into the start of the season. So if you don't have a lot of time to help and think about your team for the start of the season, hopefully this channel can help you with that. And hopefully this video and actually this draft could be something you could just pick something very similar to. In goal is Andre Onana and Areola. Andre Onana, of course, is coming up 5 million. Manchester United's new goalkeeper is being sort of talked about as being great for bonus points, great for save points, and the potential clean sheets for them as well, with Wolves and Nottingham Forest in the opening 3 fixtures. Then they've gone with Areola, who was spoken about as being a potential 4.0 million starting goalkeeper for West Ham, taking the place of Fabianski. However, Fabianski has played the majority of pre-season, so Areola, if anything, is actually at a bit of a risk of dropping in price early on in the season. He's a player we'll potentially look at. Moving into defence, so there's no Trent in here, and basically what you have is 4 strong starting defenders in John Stones, Estupiñán, Gabriel, and then Ben Chilwell with a 4.0. My 4.0 favourite at the moment is Kabore of Luton Town. He is playing wing back, but you could go for Bayer at Burnley or Baldock at Sheffield United as well. The 4 big ones we've got, of course, you cover the Manchester City defence with John Stones, who's currently playing in midfield. But in the Community Shield, he didn't actually get that far forward if Kyle Walker does stay a Manchester City player. Of course, he's linked to go to Bayern Munich. Gabriel is the second one. That Arsenal defence is great. The opening fixtures are fantastic. So having at least double up on the Arsenal team, I think is really good. This team does have 2 of them in there. Estupiñán next. The opening 3 fixtures for Brighton are really nice. We can see why he's highly owned. And only 5 million. One of the players that didn't see much of a price change versus last season. So he's a great option. And then Ben Chilwell. Chelsea without Nkunku is a little bit of a worry. A lot of people were, thinking about their attack, and their opening run of fixtures from about game week 2-3 onwards is really nice. He's on set pieces as well. He's looked great in pre-season. The only thing is, could we see Reece James taking penalties now that there is no Nkunku for the first couple of months of the season? Any of you who watched my draft video from yesterday, I actually had Nkunku in it. And about 5 hours after I uploaded it, it did say that Nkunku was out for a couple of months. I've just replaced him with Ollie Watkins for now, so that is fine in my draft. Then into midfield, so you have 3 sort of mid-high price midfielders and then 2 mid-low price midfielders. So you've got Bukayo Saka, double Arsenal midfield, so Marcus Rashford and Fernandes. Fernandes is in here because a lot of people are toying between Odegaard and Martinelli. So individually, their ownership is a little bit lower, but combined, it's about the same as Fernandes. Bukayo Saka and Marcus Rashford, I feel like, have to be in your drafts. I spoke a little bit about essential players, and I thought maybe Saka, one of the Arsenal mids, and then Rashford or Fernandes. For me, Saka and Rashford need to be in your teams. Fernandes is also a great pick. His underlying assist data is really good, and he's on penalties as well. Mitoma and Mbeumo are the most favoured 2 6.5 million midfielders that people are choosing at the moment. Both are great options. And Mbuemo did pick up a bit of a knock, but it is rumoured that he should be back for the start of the season. If he's not, people, I think, will go to Eze of Crystal Palace. And then up front, people are playing a front two of Erling Haaland, of course Erling Haaland, and Ollie Watkins as well, with Obama being the favourite 4.5 million option as he started a reasonable amount of games up front for West Ham. So this is the most popular draft, the most common draft that you will see if you pulled everyone's teams together. It is a really nice team, and as I said, I do like it. And actually, if you're thinking about what to do with your team, as I said at the beginning of the video, you could do a lot worse than picking this 15-man squad for the start of the season. It might be boring, but I actually think at the start of the season is okay time to be template. Once we know what players are performing and not performing, then you can pick your chances to go differential throughout the season. But at the beginning of the season, I do think template works. But we are going to discuss potentially a couple of ways that you could beat this template. We're going to start in goal. So at the moment is Onana and that is Areola, but I don't think this is the best combination. And the best combination is actually the two that are going to be in my draft for Game Week 1. And that is Sam Johnson of Crystal Palace and then Turner, currently at Arsenal, but has had the green light to sign for Nottingham Forest. Now, we do need him to sign for Nottingham Forest before the Game Week 1 deadline for this to be possible, but actually this draft doesn't have triple Arsenal in it, so you could do it anyway. Johnston and Turner, who will be the Nottingham Forest first choice keeper until they potentially sign Dean Henderson. Dean Henderson is linked still to go to Nottingham Forest, but he's injured at the moment and is unlikely to sign before the sort of end of the transfer window, so right towards the end of August. If you look at the potential rotating pair, Johnston and Turner do rotate really well. You can start Turner in 2 games in the opening sort of run, Sheffield United at home and Burnley at home. And if you remember Nottingham Forest from last season, they were awful away from home, but they were pretty good, particularly defensively at home. So you can just rotate Johnson out of your team when he plays Arsenal and when he plays Aston Villa away and play Turner in those 2 fixtures. So that's my first sort of change. Crystal Palace were 4th best for expected goals conceded last season, only behind Manchester City, Arsenal and Newcastle, 3 of the best defences in the league. And then it was Johnson and Crystal Palace. So I think it's great. Plus it saves you 0.5 million as well. Next up, there are a couple of other changes that I think we could make. First up, let's have a look. In defence, I think John Stones is not an essential pick for this draft. He was sort of being picked because he might play in midfield, but if you watch the Community Shield, he wasn't actually getting that far forward, and the attacking threat came from a set piece, which, yeah, we know defenders can score from set pieces, but I don't really think John Stones' midfield positioning is actually that great as maybe people are making it out to be. Downgrading him to a 4.5 or a 4.0 million defender could be a really nice option, particularly if you go down to a 4.0. Baldock is probably my second favourite at Sheffield United, playing wing back for them as well. Stones is a nice pick, but they do play away at Burnley and away to Sheffield United, 2 newly promoted teams in their first 3, plus they do have Newcastle. And actually going away to newly promoted teams early on in the season can be quite difficult. And that, along with the 0.5 million in the bank, whether you go to a 4.5 option in the likes of Leroy Colwill, Rico Henry, you could go with Mings at Aston Villa as well, would allow you to upgrade one of your 6.5 million midfielders, whether it's going to be Mbuemo or whether it would be Mitoma, depending on where you want to go, to another Arsenal midfielder. You could go all the way up to Martin Odegaard if you go to a 4.0 million defender, or you could go to Martinelli as well. Both are really good options. I'm currently deciding which to go with. Martinelli, the current one in my draft, but Odegaard probably safer for minutes. So a couple of changes there as well. You don't actually need 4 strong defenders. You only play 3 of them in this draft anyway. Downgrade 1 and get a second Arsenal attacker in your draft for their crazy good run of fixtures to open the season. And then there are a couple of other things that we could do to potentially go a little bit differential from that template draft. Again, Mitoma is in there at the moment, and he's one of the players I'm betting against in my draft. He's looked a little bit ineffective so far in pre-season. He was good at the end of last season, but didn't actually capitalise on the chances that he gets. Plus, Mbuemo's great. He's on set pieces, he's on corners, he's on penalties as well. Mitoma only has open goal threat. You could go and get a different 6.5 million midfielder in the likes of Eze, who is also on corners, also on all set pieces, and also on penalties. Having lots of routes to points, so those lots of, he can score from open play, but if he's having a bad game and he suddenly gets a penalty and scores that he gets points, is really important when you're picking some of those cheaper midfielders, which is why I actually like Mbuemo and Eze at lower ownership than Mitoma's 38% crazy high ownership at the moment. So I wouldn't be picking Mitoma in my draft. I'd be going Mbuemo or Eze for game week 1 if Mbuemo isn't fit for the start of the season. And you could actually change formation. You could go Mitoma down to Anderson, who looks like he's going to be starting the season central midfield for Newcastle and has actually scored some goals, and play 3 strikers. Now, the way you would do that is probably by selling Ollie Watkins. You could keep Ollie Watkins and actually just go and upgrade Ubama to Joao Pedro. This also would free up, a whole million in your draft as well. So you could use that to go and Buemo up to Martinelli. But I don't want to confuse things too much. But yeah, downgrading Mitoma to a 4.5 if you don't want to go with Eze, and upgrading Ubama to Joao Pedro, who's on penalties and playing centrally alongside the striker for Brighton, I feel like is a better use of your money than going Mitoma. Joao Pedro is also in my most recent draft. And then if you don't want to go Watkins, you could go with the likes of Darwin, you could go with the likes of Jackson as well. But if you are downgrading Mitoma, you can just use the money to upgrade Ubama. But of course, you could keep Mitoma, do Watkins to Darwin, and upgrade with the 0.5 million that this draft has in the bank to Joao Pedro, and actually have a really strong front 8 of players that you could play every single week. So going back to what the template originally looked like, it is something that I do quite like. And if you are building a draft and you're unsure, it's your first season playing FPL, you don't have a lot of time to think about your team, basing it off something like this is really nice. But I do think tweaking it a little bit, some of the changes we spoke about in goal, in defense, in midfield, up front, they were all changes we can make that I think will allow you to get ahead of it early on in the season. Let me know what you think. How many of these template players do you have in your current draft? I think I have 12 of them, which is not great. My team looks pretty template, particularly after the Nkunku injury, means I went and bought Ollie Watkins as well. But I do not have John Stones. I have the goalkeeper change. I also have an extra 8 million midfielder, and I have Joao Pedro. So I'm really trying to beat the template early on this season. Yeah, let me know in the comments how many of these you have. Like the video if you have not already. Plus, as always, the data from all of these videos is taken from Fantasy Football Scout. 30% off, link in the description, runs out at the beginning of the season. So go and check it out. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.